My stepmom and her sister did everything possible to get me to disown my father, but I wouldn't do it. Well, when he passed away a few years later, it turns out, I figured out why. Alright, so I'm female 30, and I know it's a long story and a crazy situation. There's a lot of drama and background info I need to get into first for this to make a bit of sense, but the title does sum it up. My abusive stepmother and her sister Tammy are trying to cozy up to me after putting me through a lifetime of abuse. And it's all because they're after my father's fortune I just inherited. I've known that's why my stepmother was around since before she was even, quote, my stepmom. So, to give a little background info, my father was the CEO of a very large company, and he's always been a little too preoccupied with work. That's why so much abuse and shady activity was allowed to go on right under his nose. I didn't know my biological mother at all. She left me before I was old enough to know her. I don't even know where she is. My dad quickly remarried because he wanted someone around to do all the housework and cooking. And he wanted someone who could basically function as a nanny for me since I was still a toddler. Unfortunately, I can honestly say I never had any sort of motherly figure. My stepmother convinced my father just to let her sister Tammy live with us, to, quote, help take care of the kid. But they never did any such thing. I was always on my own. I had to pack my own lunches and often had to walk to school because my stepmother and Tammy wanted to sleep in and wouldn't take me. I tried telling my father about this many times, but he always brushed me off. He was too busy working as a CEO to care about what was going on in his own home. As I got older, the manipulation and abuse got a bit worse. My stepmother and Tammy would routinely make messes around the house and blame them on me when my father got home from work. I remember once when I was 12, they both smoked cigarettes in the house and blamed me. I never even smoked a cigarette in my life, and I'm 30 years of age. But I still got in trouble for it. This abuse tore me inside out as a kid. I just wanted my father to believe me when I told him the truth. I'm telling you, nobody ever believed me. The worst was when my stepmother and Tammy borrowed one of my dad's credit cards. He was quite on top of his finances, so he noticed the money had been spent. My stepmother and Tammy blamed me for it. My dad made me live in boarding school for 3 months as punishment, and the torture I experienced there would be its own post. So I'll spare you all those details. By the time all this was over, I was 17 years old and working a full-time job while balancing school, so I was rarely ever at home. My dad was so engrossed with his work, he barely noticed his daughter's absence so long at the house was always in relative order. My stepmother and Tammy would keep up their abusive, manipulative crap every time I was at home. So I did a good job staying far away from that house. I would sleep over with friends whenever possible, and everything I had enough money saved from working that I was able to buy my own apartment. I showed up at home one night when everyone was asleep, quietly packed all my belongings, and left that place behind for good. Despite the efforts of my stepmother and Tammy, I was surprisingly able to maintain a decent relationship with my father after I moved out, without having my stepmother and Tammy in the way to spread rumors and lies about me. I was able to call my father on the phone directly, and we would have some great late-night chats, or catch up sometimes when he was on his lunch break at work. He was still an extremely busy man, even in an old age, but I think after I left the house, he started to realize how little he knew about me. One night, I was having a few drinks, and I could tell my father had indulged in a little too much scotch. We were talking on the phone, and he privately confided in me that he was lonely. He said my stepmom was a terrible, vindictive partner, and that he could not stand Tammy, and just wanted to evict them but didn't have it in him to break off the marriage. He admitted that he was sorry for letting my stepmother get between me and Dad's relationship, and finally hearing that meant a lot to me. One other important detail my father divulged to me that evening was quite a bombshell. He told me point blank that I would be the sole recipient of all his assets, earnings, possessions, everything. He said he already had his will 100% worked out, and that my stepmom and Tammy would not receive a single dime for the first time in a while. I went to bed happy and full of love for my father that night. Life continued to proceed onward as normal for a while after that, with both me and my father being distracted with our full-time jobs to talk or hang out often. Then, the unthinkable happened. I got a call at work from the hospital that my father had suffered a heart attack. They said I need to go there fast because he was in rough shape. By the time I get there, I had just enough time to squeeze his hand and tell him that I loved him one last time before he passed. I was devastated. Another thing I found offensive was that my stepmom and Tammy weren't even there with him in his final moments. What could have been more important, I wonder? I guess they were out shopping on his dime again, reeling from the weight of my father's death hitting me like a bag of bricks in the face. I had to clear off time from work to prepare for the funeral and make sure everything was in order. The day of the funeral was like I was too in shock to truly process everything that was going on around me. It made me happy to see all the people who came out to share kind words and love for my father's remembrance. And that's when I noticed them. What else but my stepmom and Tammy? I knew they should be coming, but I didn't want to face them at all. I thought it was so unfair that the universe would take my dad away from me and allow these two human vermin to keep on living. I tried to keep my cool out of respect for my father, even though I knew he didn't care for these people anyways. Of course, at some point, while everyone was exchanging pleasantries and giving condolences, I got approached by my stepmom and Tammy. It was the nicest they have ever been to me, and I could see through it right away. When vile, despicable people like that are suddenly being nice to you, it can only mean one thing. They want something from you. And want something from you they certainly did. Immediately, my stepmom began asking and prying questions about my father's will. They didn't seem to care one bit that my father was dead, and they didn't seem to care how I was doing. The first thing on my stepmom and Tammy's minds was obviously money. I eventually came up with an excuse for why I had to leave the funeral and bid everybody farewell. The truth was, I just could not handle it anymore. It was depressing enough that my father was gone, but I couldn't take my stepmom and Tammy's presence dampening the whole event. I gathered up some of my things and went straight to my father's house. My old family's home, which I'd avoided for years, was now my new house. My father had given it to me in his will, and my stepmom and Tammy were to be in for a rude awakening. My stepmom and Tammy eventually showed up at the house, and I could tell that they were both drunk. I guess they've been out celebrating my father's death under the assumption that a large sum of money would be going their way. They couldn't have been more wrong. They were surprised to see me at the house. At first, their reactions reeked of disgust, but my stepmother must have remembered she was trying to get on my good side because, well, her tone quickly changed. I looked at my stepmom and Tammy and firmly told them that they would have to leave soon. The house was mine, and I wanted to live alone. Immediately, the hysterics began. I'm telling you, my stepmom and Tammy are great actresses. They make Meryl Streep look bad. Basically, they both start crying as if I'm completely on command. I started hearing this indecipherable spiel of squealing from both of them. And I could hardly make out any words because of all the snot and tears emitting from their reptilian faces. But from what I could actually make out, they didn't want me to kick them out of the house because they were broke. They had no money, no job. They just needed time to get back on their feet. Blah, blah, blah. They were so devastated by my father's death and needed some time to, quote, gather themselves up back from the devastation. Such a melodramatic choice of words and actions, and yet I still gave in. I reluctantly told my stepmother and Tammy that they could stay at our house for a little while if they kept up with the household chores and paid rent. If you've been paying attention at all while reading the post, you probably won't be surprised when I tell you these two could not keep up their end of the bargain. My father's house had always been immaculate when he was around, but my stepmom and Tammy could not clean whatsoever. Whenever they tried to clean, they just made a big mess. I think they did this on purpose to get out of being expected to help out. Not to mention, these two still were not working. They weren't even applying for jobs. They just sat around running up their credit card bills, going out shopping and drinking all the time. They even had the nerve to occasionally hit me up for help with their credit card bills. Can you believe the audacity? Meanwhile, I've been working full-time except for the 1 week off I took when my dad died. I've been doing all the household chores and paying all the bills, and my patience has even run thin. I finally had enough. I'm just typing all this today and giving you all this background info because I wanted some feedback over a decision I made today. Last week, I sat my stepmom and Tammy down in the living room and gave them an ultimatum. I told them they had exactly 1 week to pay me just one rent payment, or I was going to give them the boot. I thought I was being extremely lenient here because frankly they both owe me way more than 1 week's worth of living expenses. They were both drunk when I was giving them this discussion, so all I got were jeers and cackles. Tammy, she's so immature. She started making farting noises with her tongue as I tried to talk, as you might have expected. That was a week ago and I never got a rent payment. In fact, the house got even dirtier after this confrontation. I don't know who did this, but either my stepmom or Tammy put a half-eaten hot dog in my bed. So freaking gross. I reached the end of my rope today and told my stepmom and Tammy they had 1 hour to vacate the premises. They both started laughing at me again, making fun of me and calling me names. Tammy started up the immature fart noises again, and I lost it. I called up my dad's private security guards and had them eject my stepmother and Tammy from the property. Of course, they made use of this time to really play up the victim angle. The same cries I got months ago when I let them stay in my house in the first place came out right on cue. They were both pleading with me to let them stay, but I told them no. I don't know, guys. Did I do the right thing here? It's been a few hours since the incident. I haven't heard from my stepmom or Tammy, and I don't know who or where they are. I must admit, it's nice not to have either of them in the house, though. Update number 1. What's up, guys? I just wanted to say thank you for all the kindness and support in most of the comments I received on this post. I wanted to give a little update because there's been some more drama since I posted, and I just wanted to fill everybody in. Of course, this should not be a surprise to any of you since drama follows around my stepmom and Tammy like a bad virus. Hopefully, you'll all be pleased to know that I did indeed get a few days of peace in the house after I kicked out my stepmom and Tammy. It was the best I've slept in years. I just felt like a strong adult for, well, the first time in a long time. I was still upset my father was gone, but at least I got to live in the house free of my stepmom and Tammy. I even decided to take a whole week off work. It was wonderful, but the peace did not last for long. Before my week off from work was even finished, I started getting harassing phone calls. I had forgotten my stepmom had my number from when my dad had given it out as an emergency contact oh so long ago. She had never called me before, but I started getting all these phone calls and nasty voicemails from numbers all located in Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. Well, I knew what was up immediately. Because I knew my stepmom's entire family lived in Fort Oglethorpe, and that's where she went to high school and grew up most of her life. Finally, a couple days after my phone being blown up by these freaks, somebody texted me a screenshot of a post on Facebook from my stepmom that had me in it. I was infuriated, but not too surprised. There she is, in all her melodramatic glory, playing herself up to be the victim. She even overstates her importance to my father and my father's importance to her, acting like she's some sort of grieving old widow. The people on my stepmom's Facebook page don't know she was out partying the whole week after my father died. My stepmom accuses me and, well, the post, of changing my father's will. I would never, especially behind his back to get all his money and cut my stepmom out from everything. There was a whole lot more slanderous accusations and complete lies in the post, so I'm honestly thinking about hiring a lawyer and going ahead and suing my stepmom into oblivion. The worst, most evasive part of this all, though, aside from having my father's death brought out in the open like a circus act. At the very end of the post, my stepmom gave out my phone number and my email address plain as day for everyone to see. She actively encouraged all these people in Fort Oglethorpe to start harassing me, and I'm absolutely livid. Guys, should I contact the authorities about this or just ignore my stepmom's garbage behavior and get myself a new phone number? I really just want her and every reminder of her out of my life for good. Update number 2. Hey guys, I'm back for another little update. So, I saw all your comments telling me to report my stepmom to the authorities, and I appreciate it. I realized that's what I needed to do. So I called the police and filed a report with all the screenshots and evidence of harassment. The police talked to my stepmom about it, and I had every intention to press charges. But then a bombshell was dropped. A few days after I reported my stepmom to the police, I was sitting at home late at night and get a knock on the door. This freaked me out because who in the world would come to my house this late knocking on my door unless it was a serious emergency or possibly a home intruder? I was a little weirded out, to say the least. I looked out to the people and it was no other than Tammy standing there in the cold rain. I had a bad feeling about answering the door, but I figured it had to be serious for her to be at my door so late this afternoon in the weather. I answered the door. That's when I get the news. Tammy told me in no uncertain terms that my stepmom had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. She asked me if I could please consider dropping the charges and letting her move back with me. I really didn't want to say yes, but Tammy also promised she and stepmom would pay me back for all the rent that they owed. And she apologized for the nasty Facebook posts and all the harassment and pain that they caused. I hope I don't regret this. But I agreed to let my stepmom and Tammy move back into the house. I guess I just wanted to come here to let everyone know and get some feedback on the situation. So far, Tammy is working a job. It's not much and it's not a lot of hours. Tammy's an older woman, so she can't work too hard, but she has been pitching in with groceries and household chores. My stepmom has mostly been resting as she feels weak. She told me she apparently had cancer for a while, and that can explain some of her behaviors. It's been abnormal from the past couple of years. I still have a bad feeling about all this, but I hope I'm making the right call. Would I have been heartless to stand my ground and tell my stepmom and Tammy they weren't allowed to move back in? Should I use this time as a chance to forgive them for what pain they've caused me? Maybe this will change things between us. Maybe I'm just being too optimistic to compensate for the fact that my gut feeling tells me I'm making a huge mistake. Update number 3. Hey, just dropping in for another update. Thanks to everyone who's been reading and responding regularly. It means a lot to me. Things have been going surprisingly okay at my house. Tammy's still working at a regular job, but since she's a part-time worker, I still foot most of the bills. She helps me with housework, and I try to be lenient and understanding as possible since she spends so much time tending to my stepmom. Believe it or not, my relationship with my stepmom's better than it's ever been. I'm still upset down over all the abuse and weirdness I suffered at her hands during most of my life. But seeing her lying in bed with terminal cancer right in front of me has helped humanize her. We spent many evenings just talking about the past, talking about regrets, talking about my plans for the future, talking about life in general, and of course, we spent a lot of time reminiscing about Dad. Unless my stepmother's lying, it sounds like she has a lot more intimate and meaningful moments with Father than I was aware of. This has helped me approach all of her past issues with a bit more acceptance and forgiveness. The baggage of being upset about the past all the time is just too much to carry with me everywhere. The reason I'm letting everyone know all this today is this. Something weird's come up, and I want to get some advice as to whether I'm being too suspicious here. The other night, I was bringing some soup to my mom. She can hardly keep down any food, but she hasn't been losing as much weight as most terminal cancer patients, so she's doing well fighting the disease for now. Soup is about all she can keep down, so I brought her some. We were sitting and having a chat, and my stepmom told me she had to ask us serious questions, and I said, go ahead. That's when she dropped something strange on me. She asked me if I could include her and Tammy in my will, and I thought this was weird. I mean, I'm 31 years old and healthy, and she's 51 years old with terminal cancer. Not to mention, Tammy just turned 58, and she's quite overweight. I don't say that in a mean or hateful way, I'm just illustrating the point that both Tammy and my stepmom are probably going to die before I do. I thought this was a weird thing to ask of me. My stepmom's case was that. Just in case something happened to me and I could no longer help her and Tammy, they needed to be listed as beneficiaries in my will. Am I crazy and paranoid, or is this just some sort of scam? Why is my stepmom still concerned about my father's money, aka my money, when she probably won't even live another year? I'm disappointed that this issue has come right up when I'm actually patching up our relationship to begin with. Any advice would be great. Update number 4. Hey everyone, I'm back. So, my thoughts are scattered and I'm shaken by what's happened. The only thing I could think of doing this was to get on here and vent because I do need some advice. I'm going to get straight into it. Remember last time how I let my stepmom move back in after she got terminal cancer? I've been helping with the bills, helping with medical care, paying utilities, working a full-time job, just doing everything I can do to help my stepmom and Tammy. It turns out I've been a fool. I should have trusted my gut feeling. Turns out my stepmother, well, she never had cancer. I had a day off work today and decided to go walk downtown. I was strolling past the Hooters, and who do I see outside drinking and acting crazy? That's right, stepmother and Tammy. They're supposed to be at home day taking care of the house, and my stepmom's supposed to be in bed. I just need to know what's going on. A Kid Rock song is blasting from the Hooters patio, and Tammy and my stepmom are dancing around like hooligans. So I asked them, what's going on? My stepmother said she's having a day where she felt better, so she decides to get drunk at Hooters. Well, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt and thought that maybe this could be true. When I get home, I still had the house to myself for a little while. I was feeling suspicious, so I snooped around the guest room where my stepmom and Tammy had been staying. I was looking at some of my stepmom's prescription medicine and noticed some of the spelling and lettering was off. So I googled the name of the doctor and nothing came up. It wasn't even from a real pharmacy. Upon closer inspection, I realized all my stepmom's medications were narcotics. She had no cancer medication. I logged into her bank account on the living room computer and saw all the money that she's been spending. All the purchases were during hours of the day I would have been at work. Then I found evidence of my stepmom's YouTube channel, where she and Tammy filmed themselves getting drunk at Hooters. They were even bragging about not having to work anymore in one of the videos. I was absolutely infuriated when my stepmom and Tammy finally showed up drunk tonight. So I told them immediately that they have to leave. I confronted them about it and how they were using my money to fuel their Hooter party. Finally, my stepmom admitted it in a drunken rage. She does not have cancer and never has. She just wanted to steal my money because I'm a quote idiot. Tammy made fart noises, which was par of the course considering she had the maturity of a small toddler. What these two clowns didn't know is I've got it all on film. I just wanted to let you fine people here know what's going on because these two clowns are going down. Update number 5, final update posted. Hey everyone. It's been a little while since my last update, and I just wanted to let you all know I'm still alive out here. A lot's happened since I posted last, so I want to give you one last wrap-up. Basically, one reason I didn't give an update sooner is because I've been recovering from an extremely traumatic car accident. I had a car wreck the day after I kicked out my stepmom and Tammy. I thought it was a normal case of my brakes malfunctioning, and I was just proceeding along with my injuries and pretty much living in a hospital bed. And that's when the police came and talked to me one day. Basically, the police, well, they told me that they found reason to believe someone had intentionally cut my brake lines of my car, and that it wasn't a normal malfunction. The police asked me if I had any enemies, and I knew exactly what to tell them about. My stepmom and Tammy. When I was discharged from the hospital, I was about to get footage of my stepmom and Tammy tampering with the vehicle. The night I threw them out of the house, I guess they didn't realize I had a Ring doorbell camera. It's already paid for itself, and this footage is priceless. It was exactly what I needed to take these clowns down for everything that they've done for me. Well, the footage plus all the evidence I had on my stepmom committing fraud got rid of this whole problem for me lickety-split. I couldn't say anything on here about it until the case was entirely wrapped up, but I sued my stepmom and Tammy for everything that they had. On top of the criminal charges they were already facing, they'll never pay me back. They're probably going to die in prison, which is where they are now. But it wasn't about the money for me. It was about getting some sort of justice for all the lies and manipulation they put me through since I was a little girl. Part of the reasons I got the judge to agree to the harsh sentencing I wanted from my stepmom and Tammy was simply because I became well acquainted with one of my dad's old lawyer buddies. See, this guy was one of the best in the business. He agreed to help me on contingency as a favor for me. He was very close to my father, and he told me he never liked my stepmother. Well, me neither. It was satisfying being in court that day and seeing the judge read off all the guilty verdicts. My stepmom and Tammy didn't even have any dignity about it either. They just immediately start this crying act. Only this time, their acting skills just didn't get them anywhere. I hope all you guys out there enjoyed reading this. I was certainly surprised by what all has happened since my original post. But now I can get some rest knowing my stepmom's out of my life for good. So I personally would not know what to do in this situation. I mean, not only was the stepmother and Tammy both toxic and evil, oh no, it goes way deeper than that. They actually tried to cut the brakes in the car and get OP injured. Well, it worked and she ended up in the hospital from a car accident. But karma would not stop there. Let me know. Do you think that the stepmother and Tammy got everything that they deserve from this story? If you did, go ahead and drop a comment down below and tell me what would you have done differently if you were in OP's position. I'm just personally glad that OP had evidence stacked up to finally get some karma that OP deserved. Guys, if you're new to the channel, my name's Mr. Reddito. I animate and record and narrate stories every single day. I try to find all the updates, and the best way to support me, hands down, is very simple. Just click that subscribe button, guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a fantastic day.